we're good. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. My name is Stephanie Steinberg. I'm the founder of the New York Writing Room and the Detroit Writing Room. I'm currently in Michigan here. It's beautiful today, so I figured why not go outside. Happy National Beer Day. Cheers. Feel free to join in with beers tonight, of course. I'm excited to introduce our moderator tonight, Anna Medaris Miller. She is one of our New York Writing Room coaches and a big beer enthusiast. She's written a couple stories related to beer and health, and I'll share some of those in the chat box so you guys can check it out. But feel free to keep yourself on mute during the panel discussion, and then we'll have Q&A at the end around 8 o'clock. So if you have a question, feel free to hold on to it. But without further ado, Anna, feel free to take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Good to see all of you, many of you who I know well, and many of you who I'm related to. So this is a treat. Yeah, happy National Beer Day again. And for me, first dose of vaccine day. If I am a little loopy, it's not just the beer. So I have two excuses to use. But yeah, Stephanie said, I'm a New York Writing Room coach, a senior health reporter at Insider, and my very serious beer credential is that I just love beer. I do happen to be from Wisconsin, but that's not where I learned to love beer. Like all good Americans, I learned in college with a fake ID. Sorry, mom and dad. I was first, well, this is actually a good little story though. I was first drawn to the beauty of some of the bottles, including the Sierra Nevada green. I just love that color. So good choice, Dad. But I did, soon learn to appreciate just the joys of sitting on a patio with a new or old friend and tasting something new, distinct, delicious, learning about different cultures, sometimes different countries, and supporting local businesses along the way. I've tried beers that many people would taste and never think are beer. Like one in Copenhagen, I distinctly remember tasting like soy sauce, but like in a very good way. And I wish I had written it down. It still like stays in my palate as like just one of the most unique beers I ever had. And then like up to a couple of years ago when I went to the Great American Beer Festival and tasted some of these milkshake IPAs, which now in New York at least are kind of almost mainstream, but kind of goes to Talea's mission, which hopefully Leanne will talk more about, but everybody can like beer. Although, even if you don't like beer, don't drink, this event is still for you, I hope. As a journalist, I'm really drawn to the stories behind beer and the people who make them, which is why I'm really excited for these three panelists to be with me today. They all have very different backstories, very different types of beer that they brew, and different levels of experience in the industry. But they're all women pursuing their passion in a male-dominated industry whose businesses have survived, if not been built during the pandemic. So we have a lot to talk about. Now I will turn it over to the three of you to introduce yourselves, and then we'll kick it off. So Karen, why don't you start?
Okay, I will go first. Hello, my name is Karen Hertz, and I am the founder and owner of Holla Daily Brewing in Golden, Colorado. A little bit about myself, because it's really where Holidaily came from. I worked in the beer business for about 10 years. I worked for another brewery in Golden, Colorado you may have heard of. It's called Coors. So I was there for about 10 years. And while I was there, I got an MBA in entrepreneurial studies. I didn't think I would ever start my own business. I went to get an MBA and was like, you got to pick a track like finance or marketing or accounting or whatever it might be. And I kind of liked being the master of nothing and knowing a little bit about everything. And entrepreneurship is that. You kind of just learned a little bit about everything. And I liked that track. And so ended up with this degree in entrepreneurship. No idea I was going to start a company, but it definitely has come in handy since. And then I ran into some serious health issues. I'm a two-time cancer survivor. In 2007, I was diagnosed with melanoma. In 2008, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer and an autoimmune thyroid disease and was told I needed to be gluten-free. and I live in Colorado, and you guys might know it's a pretty big beer state. We do a lot of outdoor activities. I'm a huge sports fan, and beer is my social life. We operate ski. I want a beer. We go to a Broncos game and I want to tailgate with a beer. So being told, and I was working at a big brewery at the time, so being told I couldn't have beer was disheartening because beer is made with barley and barley has gluten, and that was no longer an option for me. And I tried some of the gluten-free beers at the time that were out there. Just felt like the quality was not good, and started researching ingredients, and ultimately figured out how to make great craft beer that's 100% dedicated gluten-free. That's all we do. We're the biggest gluten-free brewery in the country. There are over 8,000 craft breweries in the US, and 16 of us are gluten-free, and we are the largest in the country. We have a tap room here in Golden and a production brewery here in Golden. We opened in February of 2016. It was a brewer and myself, and started distributing by driving my mom car to a liquor store and knocking on the door and delivering beer in my mom car. So that's really how we grew. But now we distribute throughout all of Colorado, all of Arizona, all of Kansas, Kansas City, and we're shipping beer to Houston in 2 weeks. So we're growing quickly. I don't know, world domination is my ultimate goal in the gluten-free beer world. So I got a long way to go. But that's where we are, what we do. We package everything on site, all cans, and those are the states that we distribute to right now. Not Michigan yet. Sorry, not New York yet, a little far, but someday you'll know I've made it when we get to New York. So thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of this panel, and happy National Beer Day.
Well, you do ship to other states, and
we don't actually.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I thought go ahead.
Yeah, Colorado has some weird laws where we can't ship beer out of state. So you just have to come to Golden to see me. It turns out it's a really nice place and everybody's invited. So please come to Colorado.
And one last thing I'll add to your introductions, if you can tell us where the names of your companies came from, because I really love the story of Holla.
Thanks. All of our names, I mean, from all our beers, there's a story behind every single beer. I love that part of it. I love that part of marketing. But Holidaily, it's really about my history. And I had been very, very sick and had lots of issues, and just wanted to celebrate life every single day. And the name I sort of initially came up with was 7 Day Weekend. And I was like, oh, then it turns into like SDW, or like I want to put that on a can and it would wrap all the way around a can. Like it wouldn't work, but that was the feeling I wanted. And one of our, marketing team was like, what about Holidaily? Like every day's a holiday. And it's been an awesome, really fun brand to build underneath too. Really, it's all bright colors, and as long as it's a good story, it fits under that brand. So we haven't really pigeonholed ourselves. And so I love it. So Holidaily, make the most of every single day.
I love that too.
Leanne,
how about you introduce yourself next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Leanne. I'm the co-founder of Talea. My love for beer started when I was stationed in San Diego. My career started in the Navy. I served for 5 years as a signals intelligence officer, stationed in Hawaii for 3 years and San Diego for 2. So if you're going into any branch of service, the Navy is the place to be. But in San Diego, I fell in love with craft beer, especially West Coast IPAs. Planted a seed in my mind that it's something I would be interested in pursuing, or possibly something I wanted to have of my own someday, a craft brewery and a tap room. But after the Navy, I went the corporate finance route, moved up to San Francisco and worked at one of the big tech companies for several years. Couldn't shake the idea of having a company of my own or being in beer. So I started homebrewing, started to bother breweries around me to see if I could work for free. Got got my MBA from Berkeley and left Google to join a beer e-commerce startup called Hopsy that was based in Berkeley. And at that time, their business model was to source beer with growlers from local breweries and deliver it direct to consumer to people's doors. So I joined them as their head of finance. So I was able to learn about a startup, work with dozens of breweries in the Bay Area, and helped them fundraise about $20 million over a few years. They were backed by Heineken. So they decided to move headquarters to New York City. This was 3 years ago. And because Heineken, or what we would call Mother H, their US headquarters is in White Plains. So we came to New York City. We're hiring and growing our team. And Tara Hankinson's resume, my co-founder, came across my desk. I was like, oh my gosh, there's another woman who wants to leave her career. At that time, she was working at the New York Times, just to get more exposure in the beer industry and, pursue a passion. And so I convinced her to join. And within 3 months of knowing each other, we had formed the LLC that is now Talea. Our original name was Weekender. So it's funny, we're all kind of going for this lighthearted, like beer doesn't have to be so serious type of vibe. But that was trademarked by a wine company in Boston. They sent out a 4-pack of wine called Weekender, and they wouldn't let us use it. So it took us several months to come up with a name, and we ended up deciding on Talea, which is a combination of Tara and my first names. It should be Talea, but Talea sounds fancier. So that's what we go with. About 10% of customers know how to say it, but that's okay. So we created the LLC. We were like, let's just make a beer and get it on the shelves of Whole Foods. That was our entire goal. So we started contract brewing. Whole Foods was one of our first customers, and since then started fundraising to build our own space and tap room. And we just opened almost a month ago to the day. So it's been a wild ride, but that's the short version of the story.
I am unfortunately guilty of pronouncing it wrong.
That's okay.
Saying Talea, or I've been saying Talea, but it's Talea. So thank you for.
So I view it as it's like McKellar. If you have to stop and think about it and ask how to say it, it's just sticking in your brain for longer. Like, is it Mickler or McKellar? So I just view that as a positive thing, that people actually pause and think about it. I don't know.
I'll feel like extra cool when I say it right. And to everyone else, Talea is like maybe a quarter mile from where I live in Williamsburg. So I finally went last week and it was delightful. Just a really welcoming, big open space. And they serve coffee in the morning. So you can kind of make it work from home reprieve. So I really appreciate that. Okay, lastly, let's toss it to Zara. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I am Zara. I am the owner and founder of Back Home Beer here in Brooklyn, New York. We are very new. We just received our license actually this month. And so basically our name came from the fact that my parents emigrated to the States from Iran. My grandfather was actually brewing beer in Shiraz in the 60s and in the 70s. And so my grandmother had kind of always longed for the taste of his beer. And so I started to homebrew as a hobby a few years ago, just to kind of create some taste and flavors that were familiar for her. And I would mail bottles to her and mail bottles to my family. And it was just really nice to see their reactions. And I became more involved kind of in the brewing world and just sharing my bottles with people in the breweries and homebrew clubs and things like that. And I kind of had the idea to bring beer back and represent a region that's not really represented in the beer world. And so that's really where the idea kind of came from. And so a lot of our brews are inspired and influenced by flavors and tastes from the Middle East, and from Iran too, specifically. And I also have some notes from my grandfather who had jotted down some of his recipes. So I'm taking a lot of what he did in the 60s, what he did in the 70s, and kind of trying to bring it back with kind of modern styles of beer and using some ingredients that he was using. So it's really an homage to him and the region itself, and try to bring beer back home essentially. Prior to that, so I'm very new to the beer world. I don't have as much experience as the other two panelists, but I really enjoyed home brewing and the business side. I actually went to Georgia Tech in Atlanta. I received my degree in business, and I've been in New York for 16 years now, mostly actually writing and working at Fox News. I worked at ESPN. I helped to launch the Fox Business Network in 2007. So I did a lot of writing and production, and took a break when I had my son 7 years ago, and then kind of got back into trying to start a business. Really right a few months before COVID was when we were planning to apply for our license. So our timeline did shift a bit, but now we're back at it and hoping to start production next month in New York City.
So exciting. Congratulations, we're almost there.
Thank you.